I'm Dan.
I'm Dani.
This is Dan's on Fandoms. Man, oh man, what a freaking week. Oh my God.
I know.
So much good shit this week.
Yeah, we were like cramming in the episodes of things right up until about literally 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, oh my God, so much good stuff. But before we get into some of the cool stuff that we watched this week, let's first talk about weekly news.
News.
Is that like your news call?
Sure. It just felt natural.
So let's start with a little Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that happened this week.
Yeah, so literally hours after it was announced that Blood Moon, the Game of Thrones prequel set during the Age of Heroes, we got the announcement that HBO ordered a full season of the House of Dragon show, which takes place during the Fire and Blood book that came out, I believe, this summer, right? Or this year?
I think it was last year, but I read it this summer, and it was a little dry, but I think that was intentional because it is supposed to read as a history book.
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be written by the Maesters?
Correct. Yep. So the Maester that wrote the book kind of references diaries and things from that time period, but it is about a 300-year time frame of the Targaryens that is in the current book, and there should be a second volume coming out soon.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah. So one of the things that I think is awesome is that it's being co-created by Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin. So our boy George is going to have his hands in this show.
I'm still waiting on Winds of Winter.
And our boy Miguel Sapochnik, he's going to be directing the show's first episode. He's directed some of my absolute favorite episodes of Game of Thrones.
He's so good. He's so wonderful.
Yeah, he did in the 5th season, he did Hard Home. 6th season, he did Battle of the Bastards and the Winds of Winter. He also directed The Long Night and The Bells, which, yeah, I'm really pumped that they've got Condal working on this, George R.R. Martin, and that Miguel Sapochnik is going to come back to direct episodes.
I feel like we definitely need to be ready to be impressed.
Definitely. So on to Matt Reeves' The Batman. It was announced that Jeffrey Wright has been officially cast as Commissioner James Gordon.
Yay!
Which he is such a great actor. He's been awesome in Westworld. So I'm very excited to see him play Commissioner Gordon. I think that's such a great casting call.
Yes, he is a wonderful actor as well. So I'm super pumped.
Definitely. I agree with that one. We also got the trailer for The Witcher and an official drop date. So December 20th is when that will drop.
Are they trying to kill us that weekend? Because I'm pretty sure there's just everything.
Bro, I'm ready for it. That's going to be such a great week. I got like a week and a half off of work, so I'm going to be watching so much stuff.
I'm picturing like throw your head back, kind of do like the cross motion and be like, just take my body.
My body's ready, baby. Give it to me. So yeah, and the trailer looks so good. I have never read the books. I never played the video games, so I'm going into The Witcher completely fresh. So yeah, I don't really know too much about the story, just the basic premise, but I think it looks, so far from the trailer, it looks really good.
And for as much shit as Henry was getting about that wig, I don't care. I'll take it.
That wig looked fucking bad though. When they
released... Yeah, the first one,
Come on,
definitely.
Man. Pay for a better wig. Or maybe pay for someone to put it on better. I don't know. It just looks so bad.
Maybe they did with the mustache thing, how they CGI'd the mustache.
Oh, yeah,
maybe
that's
they
right.
did that to the wig this time.
We also got news that there is going to be a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sequel that's coming in April 8th, 2022, and I'm so excited about that.
That's such a fast turnaround time for an animated feature.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, oh my God, that movie was like, we went into it, and we're not really, I don't think we were expecting very much. And it blew us both away. Like, we came out of the theater like smiles plastered on our faces.
Yeah, that movie is absolutely incredible, and I'm very excited to see where the sequel is going to take us. There's rumors that Tom Holland may make potentially even just a cameo, but he may be in the sequel.
I'm okay with that. Oh my gosh, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that. It was also announced that Ant-Man 3 is in the works. Peyton Reed is going to be back to direct Ant-Man 3, so he directed the first Ant-Man and the second Ant-Man. And Ant-Man 3 will reportedly follow Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder. It's expected to shoot at the end of next year or the beginning of 2021, so that's definitely another movie to look forward to. The Ant-Man movies have been great.
Oh, yeah, they've been super fun.
So that's pretty much it for news.
Resistance time?
Oh, yeah. So what'd you think?
I thought this was better than the last episode. I think it started off a little slow, but this episode was titled The Engineer, and we met a new character named Nina.
I've mentioned this several times already. This show shines when the First Order has a presence one way or another in their episodes. At first, I was a little on the fence about the episode, and then once we realized, okay, Nina is an operative of the First Order, this is getting interesting here, and definitely by the end of the episode, I was like, all right, this is a good episode. Maybe not the best, but it's still entertaining.
It definitely was, and I like how they left the door open for Nina to come back. I'd really love to see her and Niku. They really hit it off, and I think she felt very guilty by the end of the episode with how she treated Niku. I also thought it was really cool. The voice actor, and I apologize, I don't remember their names. The voice actor who does Niku's voice is actually married to the woman who voiced Nina, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I really enjoyed Nina and Niku's interactions in this episode, and again, I mentioned this, I feel like Niku is such good comedic relief.
Agreed. Yeah, I was really hoping they would mention that they would be the same species, but it apparently was not in the cards.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're the same species, right?
And they looked pretty similar, but they didn't make mention of it. So I think if they were the same species, they probably would have said something or like dropped a little hint.
Yeah, and I'm pissed at myself right now that I don't know what kind of species Niku is.
How could you?
So next up, His Dark Materials.
Which we did just finish watching the first episode, like right before we came to record.
We literally finished watching that episode, got our stuff together, and now we're recording. And I have to say, I have never read any of the His Dark Materials books. I never saw that apparently shitty movie with Daniel Craig. I knew nothing about His Dark Materials, and after watching that episode, man, I want to watch as much as I can of this show. I am absolutely floored by what I just watched.
It was so much fun, and it was definitely really good at kind of sucking you in with the intrigue and the world building that even they've done in this first episode.
Why can't I live in a world where animals talk?
I don't know, Dan. I wish I could tell you too.
Oh my God, man. And so what would your demon be?
Well, obviously, I know what yours is going to be.
Greyhound, 100% Greyhound. Not even, although they did say sloth, and I was like, oh, that'd be good. But as far as fighting,
you fucked.
Yeah, sloth's not good.
Well, you know, those are some large claws that a sloth has.
God, right?
So maybe they wouldn't be quite as bad at fighting as you would expect.
I guess, is it algae that they have growing on their backs? I think it's algae, right?
Yeah, because they're so
Maybe
slow.
you could get them with algae. I don't know. But sloth would be adorably cute, but as far as having like a companion that could fuck shit up, at least a greyhound is fast as shit.
That's true, but I'm also just picturing the scene from Zootopia with the sloths at the DMV. I just had to point that out.
So is Lin-Manuel Miranda's demon the polar bear or no?
No. So I read this back in high school, so I really don't remember a whole lot of details. Actually, it was probably middle school when I actually read it. No, I think they're like fighting polar bears. I think they guard the north, but
Guardians of the North.
Don't quote me on that because I don't remember that much.
And the young actress that is going to be the show's protagonist, Lyra. One of my first questions to Danielle was, holy shit, this girl is British? Because I know her from Logan, and she spoke Spanish in Logan, and she was absolutely fantastic.
Right, in that movie, yeah, she was great.
So yeah, totally surprised that she's British.
And Spanish.
And my God, she is a fantastic actor.
She's so cute.
Yeah, so she was great. The goddamn snow leopard, I love the fact that there's demons. Like, that to me is...
And they talk to you.
Oh my God, that to me is like so incredible. I'm so excited to see where the show goes from here. I don't want to say that I went into the show with low expectations, but just kind of like, hey, I think this looks cool. I don't know how good it's going to be because I really don't know where the story is going to go. And I am so pumped after watching that first episode.
Spoilers, but we did see a man's head frozen in ice. That was cool.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
If that tells you anything about where we're going.
I also love that HBO totally recycles their actors. So the master for the college is a guy, he was an actor in The Wire. We saw multiple actors who were featured on Game of Thrones. We had Salador Saan.
Jorah
Mormont, yep.
Yeah, it was very exciting. We're like, oh, that face. I know that face.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see where the series is going to take us and what else we have in store. So another week and another fantastic episode for The Watchmen. We got introduced to some new characters. Some questions were answered. Some new questions came about. So wonderful episode.
I was going to say, The Watchmen is very good with kind of giving you little tidbits of answers, and then they kind of turn it the other way and are like, you know what? We're going to create 30 more questions for you to try to figure out.
They peel back the onion to then only show us another onion that needs to be peeled back. It's fantastic storytelling.
An onion and an onion?
Yes.
Okay. So in this episode of The Watchmen, we were introduced to really two big main characters, Laurie Blake and Dale Petey, which was super exciting. They're both on the anti-vigilante task force for the FBI. But Laurie Blake used to be the second Silk Spectre back in the day of vigilantism.
And I think that's interesting that Laurie is now a part of this anti-vigilante task force when she herself was a vigilante.
Thank you to Dale Petey's Pedopedia. We did read that Laurie and Night Owl were arrested in the mid-90s, and Dan is still in custody, and Laurie decided to work with the FBI, apparently.
From the Pedopedia, it makes it seem as if Night Owl would not take a deal with the FBI to join them. Laurie Blake did, and now she is combating vigilantism. What I really love about this episode is that really her and Ozymandias at this point, they're our conduits from the world that we're seeing now to the comic for the most part. And you're totally seeing a different Laurie Blake in the show than what we got in the comic.
Absolutely. I would love to know, and maybe this would be a future season, I would love to know what happened to Laurie in the time frame between the comic and now, because she is one badass who does not take any shit.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I want to delve into a little bit more.
Yeah.
But in the comic book, Laurie is way different. She's much more one-dimensional. She's very passive. Her character, Silk Spectre, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, they wanted to depict her how women were depicted in comics in the 80s. So basically, women, unsurprisingly, were very one-dimensional at this point in time, and that's how Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons depicted her, as kind of a knock against writers at that time.
Right, because in the comic book, she pretty much she's kind of been under the instruction of her mother, kind of forced into vigilantism at a very young age. At 16, she meets Dr. Manhattan, and then she kind of falls in love with him, and she's with him until she's in her early 30s. So, she's really been kind of controlled and under someone else's thumb for the majority of her life.
Yeah, and so when we see her now in the series, she's way more cynical, somewhat nihilistic. She's very sure of her capabilities, kind of headstrong.
She's very headstrong. That's a light way of putting it, I feel like.
Definitely condescending at times as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So way different than how she is depicted in the comic. And one of the things that I noticed is she seems to be taking on characteristics of her parents.
Oh, she definitely is. If you've read the comic, you will notice that she's kind of pulling from both.
Just a couple of quick little tidbits about this. So Laurie now goes by her father's name, and her father was Eddie Blake, the comedian. So she now goes by Laurie Blake. In the comic, she was referred to as Laurie Jakpeksik. Her mother was Sally Jupiter. She was the first Silk Spectre, and as I mentioned, her father, Eddie Blake, he was the comedian. We saw her multiple times in this episode making jokes like her father, the comedian.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading an article that they specifically made her take on some of his jokes and his mannerisms.
Yeah. So, she's on the phone with Dr. Manhattan giving us this long joke, but even throughout the episode, she's slinging jokes. There's also the briefcase, which we come to find out later.
God.
And big Dr. Manhattan dildo aside, there's that Esquire cover, which shows her and Dr. Manhattan. And in the comic, so Laurie would chastise her own mother, the original Silk Spectre, for keeping illustrations of herself from the 1940s, and now Laurie is doing the same thing. So according to Lindelof, this was his way of basically saying, we're doomed to become our parents. I think he said this in an interview, I believe. And yeah, that she has basically become her parents, which I find so interesting.
I loved how the cover was Silk Spectre takes Manhattan, and then the fact that the dildo had to be...
The giant dildo.
Was in 2 pieces.
Yeah.
Like, the balls were separate. That was wild. I was not expecting that.
That's a big dick.
It really was.
So we're seeing a different Laurie, and man, Jean Smart fucking nailed it, dude. She crushed it. She was so spectacular in this episode, and I think she is going to wind up being really great as the season progresses. So now we're introduced to her as well as Dale Petey of Peteypedia fame. So we learn that they're going to be heading to Tulsa to investigate Judd Crawford's death.
And I love how Laurie wanted to go by herself, and her director's like, not a chance. So she's like, yeah, I'll pick him.
Let me pick the doofus.
Yeah, who's running the projector, because heaven forbid there's no technology.
I love that they had the projector, those old school projectors.
I feel like Dale Petey is going to come to play a little bit later, because we do find out that he did his master's thesis on the police riot of 77, and that he has a PhD. So this guy's a smart dude. One
of the things that I really liked was they're in the plane, and she at this point is underestimating him. She's like, what do you want, an autograph? And he starts getting real with her because they're looking at the Millennium Clock. And Petey tells Laurie that Lady True said, look on my works, ye mighty in despair, when doing the groundbreaking for the Millennium Clock. And I love that because I feel like that's, again, one of those things that to me was just peeling the onion back a little bit more, but then also adding more questions to the equation, because that line is from a poem called Ozymandias by Percy, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Bysshe Shelley. And a central theme of the poem is the inevitable decline of rulers with their pretenses of greatness. For me, I took this a few different ways, or I guess you could take this a few different ways. Is she referring to mankind's hubris and that eventually there's going to be a downfall of mankind? Is she referring to Adrian Veidt, because we learn that she purchased Veidt's company and his alter ego is Ozymandias,
right?
Which made me think, does she potentially have dirt on Adrian Veidt? Because
I think she does.
Right?
Oh, she definitely does.
And this then brings us to where we see Ozymandias. There's all these theories that are going around the internet. Is he on Mars? Where the fuck is he? Could Lady True have her hand in his captivity? I have no clue at this point.
Like you said earlier, the more things that we find out, the more questions are really brought up, because at this point we really have no idea where this is going.
And that's one of the things that I love about this show. I was reading a thread on Reddit and someone said that you have to pay attention to every single detail and every single shot of the show, and it is so true. That's the making and the marks of a fantastic show. When you have to pay attention to everything that you're seeing, when everything that you're seeing on the screen has meaning for something, it makes for such a great experience, and that's how I feel this show has been. It's been such a fucking wonderful ride at this point.
Right. I feel like right now, like, we've watched each episode twice. The first episode we watched 3 times. I feel like we could just keep watching it and still find more things. I mean, thank God for Reddit and news articles and Twitter, because I feel like there is just so much to unpack with each episode that I couldn't come up with this shit all on my own.
Laurie and Petey are in Tulsa and they're staying at the Black Freighter Motel.
I just want to say, for the record, I pointed that out to you.
You did. You totally did. But they quickly hit the streets, and now they're looking for Looking Glass and Sister Night. Laurie and Petey find their way to the warehouse where the pod is, and that's where we learn that she does indeed know the Looking Glass and Sister Night's name, and she also sees how the Tulsa PD is handling this whole incident with the 7th Cavalry. Which
is pretty terrible.
Pretty really fucked up, right?
It is. It kind of reminded me of like pictures and things that we saw of Guantanamo Bay. Where everybody is just kind of like blindfolded, no rhyme or reason. You're just kind of torturing everybody just to see what you can get.
Wow, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's a really good connection.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. The book is incredible because not everything is black and white. There's a lot of gray, and we're seeing that with the police here in this episode. And we talked about this, right? The police are not going to automatically be the good guys, and we're seeing more of the brutal and potentially unjust and maybe illegal. We don't know if what they're doing is legal, right?
We don't. And honestly, seeing Lori walk through this warehouse and kind of see what's actually taking place in Tulsa right now, I think she was a little shocked.
Well, she did make mention to the Looking Glass about in the first episode when they find out about the cattle ranch. She mentions that she reviewed the video and how he did not divulge the information, but then Looking Glass tells her, well, Sister Night got it and I was not there and I did not see any violence. She doesn't believe him, but yeah.
Well, he technically didn't see any violence. He just saw the blood coming under the door afterwards.
So yeah, some brutal shit.
While Lori is in the warehouse, she does go and talk to Looking Glass, and she ends up going into the pod with him. And I thought it was just kind of funny that she really just whittled it down to it's a racist detector. Like, whatever Looking Glass said to be like, nah, it's really important. It's this great tool. It's a racist detector.
And Tim Blake Nelson is so good. I want to see him in more scenes because he is so fantastic. I love all the scenes he's in. And yeah, he was just great on screen with her.
Yeah, you could just tell, like, he didn't want to give her any information, but then Lori starts spinning it out and he was like, shit, I'm fucked.
So after that, Lori winds up going to Judd's house, does some investigating, which that comes into play later. And now we find ourselves at Judd's funeral.
Which things got real quick.
Yep. We see that Angela is doing Judd's eulogy. They asked each other that if one of them were to die, they would do each other's eulogies, and they already had them pre-penned. And while she's doing the eulogy, you hear the fucking tick-tock, and I love that they do that.
Oh, I hate it when they do that.
I love it.
Well, yeah, I love it and I hate it because then I know something exciting or serious is going to happen. And then I'm just like, oh my God, my blood pressure is rising. And as my blood pressure is rising, we see the 7th Cavalry member coming up through the mausoleum with this tunnel that they dug.
With the suicide vest that we saw them making last week.
Yes, we did. And we find out that he's going to attach it to his heart. So he busts out of that mausoleum and he takes Joe Keane, who is at the funeral, as a hostage. And Miss Lori never wanted to follow rules exactly. Lori kept a gun holster on her ankle. She killed him right quick.
She murks his ass.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this scene for a second here. This was all staged, right? And by that I mean Senator Keane was a part of this. This was all fucking staged, right?
I wouldn't refute you on that one, that's for sure. It seems very suspicious.
I think so. And I wish I would have jotted down this person's name because I read this on Reddit. This person, I think, is hitting the nail on the head here. On Reddit, someone wrote that essentially they believe the White Knight and the Defense of Police Act, which Senator Joe Keane is talking to Lori earlier in the episode, it's referred to as DOPA, may have essentially been a smokescreen to help 7th Cavalry members infiltrate Tulsa PD, and now those behind it are hoping to get it to go national, this DOPA legislation. So if Keane is a part of 7th Cavalry, the end goal would be that he created DOPA, which helped combat 7th Cavalry, and that I think by allowing 7th Cavalry to ultimately be defeated by him, his office, the Tulsa PD, this would help propel him to the presidency, because we also learn that he has presidential aspirations.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I think that's probably spot on. That would be great.
Dude, I read that. I was like, you are one smart ass motherfucker. That is such a good theory. And that to me makes a ton of sense. Something does not seem right with the moment that Senator Joe Keane appeared on screen in this series. You knew right away that this dude is up to no good.
Right. He's got connections with Judd's wife. His father had connections with the KKK and Judd's grandfather. Like, it is a whole web we got weaving here.
Yeah, so something's up with that for sure. So let's switch gears and talk about our homeboy Ozymandias. The scenes with Ozymandias this episode were fantastic.
They were so good.
They were so good.
Had me giggling.
Oh, absolutely. I love the scene with him writing the letter to the well, I should say him speaking what he wants transcribed to be written for the game warden and Miss Crookshanks. Oh, that scene, the two of them together were just so good.
It was fun, and honestly, and I know you don't like musicals, but it reminded me of one of the scenes in Hamilton where you have Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton doing this like fancy battle that are clearly they are so angry at each other, and they're making these nice little letters to make sure that your point is coming across, but it still sounds nice to someone who might just be reading it.
And I love too at the end he's like, I'm pleased to know you enjoyed the tomatoes.
Of course. Who doesn't love a good tomato?
So what the fuck is Ozymandias up to, right? We see again another cake with 3 candles. So we've seen the first episode, a cake with 1 candle, second episode, a cake with 2 candles, third episode, a cake with 3 candles. So we're supposed to presume that 3 years is going by, and we don't know for sure.
We also don't know what part in the timeline we are with them. Like, Is this happening before the rest of the episode? Is this happening concurrently? I am to believe my thought, my hunch is that it's prior to what we're actually watching happening in Tulsa.
I'm not sure. I will say I've read people saying that they think it's supposed to be a year, 2 years, 3 years after the end of the comic when Ozymandias teleported the squid to Manhattan, which I don't agree with because of Jeremy Irons' age.
Oh, I don't think it's that close to the comic. I think it's closer to the timeline of the show.
Yes.
But I still think it's happening before our current present events in the show.
Yes. And we don't know what the fuck is going on. So as we mentioned earlier, some people are thinking that he might be on Mars in kind of like a biosphere type of thing that Dr. Manhattan made for him.
There was a lot of terraniums or terranium imagery in this episode. So I don't know if it's maybe it's Mars, maybe it's not, but I definitely think he is a captive that's very clearly trying to escape.
Yeah, he's definitely a prisoner.
Yeah, and honestly, with him making his little space suit for poor Mr. Phillips, I think he is in space someplace, just maybe it's Mars, maybe it's not.
Yo, mad fucking props to Jeremy Irons. That dude's like 70 years old. Yo, he's
older than that.
He's fit as fuck. Well, Ozymandias in the show is supposed to be in his 80s. Jeremy Irons is in his 70s. He looks fantastic for his age. And I love the scene where he's just like brutally fucking like stomping on Mr. Phillips' body.
That's frozen.
That's frozen. It's just like, yeah, Jeremy Irons is the fucking man.
I mean, he did have a shirtless scene in the previous episode. I wouldn't say I'm jealous of his abs, but I'm jealous of his abs.
So yeah, he's up to something. He clearly was making what looked like a spacesuit, or I read people say like some sort of underwater suit, but that doesn't make sense. Something's up, and it looks like he's making a catapult or a trebuchet, so some sort of projectile system.
So I do think I can agree with the underwater suit. I feel like it looked like maybe somebody who used to be a deep sea diver, like
yes. But my thing
maybe
is
in the 40s or 50s, but I don't think that. I don't know.
Sun and water.
I don't think that that's necessarily like he's not going in the water. He's going someplace in space. He's frozen to death.
But yeah, so we don't know. We find out in this episode that he is indeed Adrian Veidt. It's on Ozymandias. We learn. Oh, it killed me when he murked that buffalo. Like, oh.
They're such glorious creatures.
Oh, having seen buffalo, they're such fantastic creatures. And even though I know it's CGI, he pulls out his bow and arrow, shoots it right in the eye, and fucking kills him. We see the game warden, who I wholeheartedly believe, I stand by this, that is another Mr. Phillips with a mustache and a fucking mask.
Like the Lone Ranger.
And then that's when they get into the letter war. I love too when Miss Crookshanks is reading the letter and she's like, he underscored consequences. So good.
She just needed to make sure that Adrian understood how very serious this letter was.
One last thing to go back to Lady True. One of my big takeaways from this episode is that Lady True is going to be a big player in this season. And I think we are fortunate enough that we got a little bit of Lady True's backstory at New York Comic Con, and I don't want to divulge too much information about Lady True.
I'm so excited that she's finally in this show, though. I think this is going to be a wild episode.
So part of me wondered after this episode, is she going to be the show's version of what Ozymandias was in the comic, i.e. someone that is trying to save humanity but at all cost and potentially doing harm to many people, but in an attempt to save the world.
I really wouldn't be surprised. I think that's kind of the clues and the context that we've been given so far. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what ends up happening. Actually, I just want to quickly touch on the end of the episode, and then we'll dive into Easter eggs. I love how at the end of the episode, Lori finishes telling her joke, and it gets sent off supposedly to Dr. Manhattan, and she's leaving and walking away, and whether it's a nod to the joke, she gets a car dropped on her.
It looked like Angela's car, right?
I'm pretty sure it was Angela's car, and then it kind of pulls back, and you see the bokeh of Mars, and like almost looks like it's winking at her.
What was your takeaway with that joke?
I don't know. Maybe that Lori's the little girl and she's going to fuck everything up.
I took it to mean one of potentially a few things. So one, that maybe she's going to be the downfall of Dr. Manhattan, right?
All those vigilantes.
But also I took it as, think about what we're being shown in this episode. She's drawing from now characteristics of her parents. The comedian was super cynical, super nihilistic, right? And what we're learning from this story, this joke that she's telling, is the Night Owl, who really was a good guy, doesn't matter, he goes to hell. Ozymandias, he tried to do good. He tried to save humanity, even if it was the detriment to fucking 3 million people. Sorry, you're going to hell. Dr. Manhattan, you're going to hell. So part of me was almost like, is the purpose of this story supposed to be a nihilistic view on no matter what we do, it's all for naught. We're going to wind up, this is just a shit show. Nothing we do matters.
I mean, that would, I feel like, be in line with the comic book, that everything sucks and nothing matters. Maybe that's too cynical. I don't know.
But that, I mean, part of the comic is that there is a really gross side to humanity.
Yeah.
So let's hit on some Easter eggs, because there was a bunch. Oh my God, that's another thing I love about the show. There's so many fucking Easter eggs. I love that the masked vigilante that Lori captures at the beginning totally looks like a Batman rip.
Oh, and he definitely had like the gravelly deep voice that was in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Then when we were in Lori's apartment, she had that Andy Warhol type painting.
I love that painting.
With Night Owl, Ozymandias, the comedian, and then it kind of pulls back and it has her sitting there. And then we see that it's actually her in that spot.
And I love that Rorschach is not in that painting, and he's a big part in the comic. I also appreciated that she's taking care of an owl, and that Senator Keene makes mention to her owl that's in a cage.
And that when he's president, he could, pardon whoever he wants and let the owls fly free.
And right as she enters her apartment, she tosses on Devo, which I guess in this universe, they do have like voice recognition, but they still use CDs. So she tosses on Devo, which is a big 80s band. And I read that the lyrics pertain to the episode title, which I think is pretty cool.
They've been doing that as like a steady theme throughout the first 3 episodes. So I hope they continue it.
Another little Easter egg that we got that I thought was cool was Rorschach's journal, which makes an appearance at the FBI headquarters. But then later on, when Lori and Pete are slapping skins and we see it on his nightstand.
His nightskin. Oh my God. When Lori is going up to the Crawford's house, she had that wrought iron door that makes her look like she's wearing a mask.
That was so good.
That was really fun.
I really like that. And then we mentioned this earlier, the Black Freighter is the motel that they're staying at. And I thought it was really cool that all of the parking spots have electric car chargers. And then there seem to be these large ass towers in the background. I'm not sure if they're electric generators. One of the first things that popped into head is, hey, maybe these are like big filters that filter the air. But I would imagine maybe they have more to do with electrical energy.
In the joke that Lori kind of talks about throughout while she's talking to Dr. Manhattan, she kind of mentions little tidbits about each of them. So like Night Owl made the plane Archie. Ozymandias killed 3 million people by teleporting the squid into Manhattan. And Dr. Manhattan walking in the sun. And he's just like a god and a super weapon.
I love that they threw in there that he walked on the sun. And I also love that she mentions, I think she said that he likes to walk around with his dick hanging out.
Yeah, I like how they've been bringing in the blue dick for the last couple episodes. That's pretty entertaining.
She also, this was pulled straight from the comic at the end of her joke, roll on snare drum, curtains, good joke. That's pulled directly from the comic. Rorschach says it.
And then the last one, just a little tidbit and a reminder that we learned that Russia is attempting to make an intrinsic field generator.
Dun, dun, dun. Dr. Leningrad? Doctor of St. Petersburg.
Oh my God.
Imagine a red dick and a blue dick just going head to head, literally and figuratively.
Oh, stop. Anyway.
So tons of good shit this week. Man, this was like a fantastic week.
Mm-hmm.
Final thoughts on Watchmen.
I'm super stoked. I'm seriously loving the show. I'm loving how much thought and care and dedication went into it. And honestly, I'm going to go back to New York Comic Con for a second. It was so great to hear them speaking about it because I really think that love for this comic book, you could all feel it. Everybody in the audience could tell that they really put a lot of thought and effort into this creation. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I'm sorry to rub it in, but as you're saying this like gives me chills, man, just thinking about what was talked about at New York Comic Con. Like, this show is in great hands, man. I'm so happy that we got to hear them talk about this at New York Comic Con and seeing this show play out, because it's been nothing short of absolutely fantastic. For the assholes that are downvoting it on IMDb, those right-wing conservative schmucks, fuck you guys. The show is absolutely fantastic. Agreed. It's not all liberal media. Just get your head out of your asshole. Hopefully you were as entertained as we were during the taping of this episode. And if you are, we are Dan's on Fandoms on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Follow us on wherever you check out your podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, the whole list of them. I'm not going to list them all because there's a shit ton. Follow us, homies. We'd love to hear from you guys and let us know what you think about the episode. Also, rate us if you can. Help others discover the show and discover the goofiness of Dani and I. Yeah, I like that. Otherwise, stay nerdy.